Welcome back. Now, Karooooo and Altron have traditionally competed to become the best in their business on the continent. With similar offerings in the fleet management space, both groups have invested in broadening their offerings to gain an upper hand over the competitor. Some of these investments have paid off, and we're yet to see what other plans the companies have in store. Business writer for Business Day, Mudiwa Gavaza, joins us for further insights. Mudiwa, always a pleasure and a good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Olutando.
All right, before we get into Netstar and Cartrack, this is a very competitive market. There aren't actually too many players that play in the space.
Yeah, so this is a market that, has, like you said, a couple of players. The big ones being Cartrack, which is owned by Karooooo. You also have Netstar, which is owned by Altron. You also have Mixed Telematics, which recently... for those following some of the deal action, they recently merged with a US company called Powerfleet. So that's the type of space, that we're talking about. Roughly, you're looking at, close on 2 million customers with Cartrack. And then, you have Netstar that's just reached 1.7 million. And then, Mix, sort of trailing at just over 1 million. Yeah.
Now let's talk about, this vehicle tracking business as a part of a greater solution for consumers. You and I might think of vehicle trackers in our cars, but of course, in the commercial and logistics space, that's actually a bigger business.
Yeah, no, it's a huge business, for a lot of these companies, and these guys actually have themselves split between, consumer customers such as you and I. But also, some of the enterprise clients as well. I recently had a conversation with Altron CEO, and he was talking about the fact that from a strategy point of view, they are, looking to attack more on the enterprise side. Because think about it. If it's you and I, that's probably one car, maybe two, if you have a household. But in the case of an enterprise, you could be looking at 500 vehicles, all at once, by signing over one customer. So you have greater potential for customers from that point of view. And I think on the side of Netstar, the way that they are split, at least from what I can see, is you're looking at roughly, I stand to be corrected on the number, but roughly 700,000 consumers, and then the rest, which is sitting at about 1 million, sits probably more in the enterprise space.
Altron and Karooooo, as parent companies, Mudiwa, are actually worlds apart. And I'm wondering if that at all, does inform what happens with Cartrack and Netstar and how they compete.
Well, funny enough, we can say that they're worlds apart, but strategy-wise, there are actually quite a number of similarities, between them. Both of them, obviously, Netstar is a subsidiary, where, to Altron, in the same way that Cartrack is a subsidiary to, Karooooo. But where Cartrack has been the majority of the business, for Karooooo, Netstar is one of those businesses that has been part of a portfolio, because for Altron over the last couple of years it was Bytes. That was the big, the big business. But after that unbundling, you've sort of seen them doubling down, saying, actually, we have some great businesses. That Netstar thing, can we, do something about growing, that business a bit more? And I think what's most interesting in terms of the comparison, when I was just doing the research, we found that Netstar, they saw their subscribers growing by 27%, at the last year end, which is up to February, whereas Cartrack, saw an increase of 15%. So you are seeing growth happening on both sides, but for now, it does seem that the growth is happening faster, on the Netstar side.
Then let's talk about differentiation, because like I said, for people like you and me, I'll be very honest, a tracker's a tracker. Insurance wants it put in. They often tell me who they want to get, and that person comes, they put it in, and we keep it moving. But for fleet management and the logistics sector, that might be a completely different story. Logistics managers, fleet managers, they may be looking for very specific things there, Mudiwa. And I'm wondering if there is a differentiation in that respect.
Funny enough, and this was, an interesting comment that came from Altron CEO. He actually says that they see the future, more competing on services, and that we're going to reach a stage in future where, it doesn't really matter what device you have in your vehicle, but just who are you subscribing to in terms of the actual tracking. So I thought that was an interesting comment to answer your question. And then I think the second piece for differentiation is the fact that we've spoken about consumers, we've spoken about the enterprise clients, but both companies actually have relationships with OEMs, basically your vehicle manufacturers. I think on the side of Karooooo, they have relationships with some of the European, manufacturers, whereas Netstar has an almost, I can't remember the exact timeline, but I think it's almost 5-year relationship now with Toyota. So if you get a Toyota vehicle in South Africa, a Toyota or a Lexus vehicle, and they had this sort of tripartite alliance thing that they did back in 2019, where if you get a Toyota or Lexus vehicle, you can get telematics that are being done by Netstar, and then you get Wi-Fi that's then provided by Vodacom. So that relationship with Toyota is actually helping them in South Africa, but it's also helping them in Southeast Asia as well.
Let's then talk about diversifying outside of South Africa. Of course, we know Karooooo, based in Singapore right now, and really looking at that Southeast Asian market as a place for growth. I'm wondering for Netstar if there's a similar strategy, Mudiwa. And the reason I ask this also is because South Africa, with an economy that's battling to struggle, may be something worth diversifying away from.
And once again, this is, I think on this particular point is where you see probably the biggest similarity, between the two companies. The majority of their customers on both sides are, from South Africa, but both companies have identified Southeast Asia, as being the growth market. Obviously, Karooooo has gone so far as to actually move the entire headquarters to Singapore. I don't think we're going to see Altron doing that, but they have definitely signaled that those are the markets they're looking at. Specifically, on the side of Netstar, it's Malaysia. That's one of the countries that they've been in. But the other market, that is quite interesting is that Netstar has for a long time actually been on Australia as well.
Very interesting, Mudiwa. We don't often talk about car trackers, but today has been an interesting one. Thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure. That was Mudiwa Gavaza. He's business writer for the Business Day.